NBATV.
The depth of Dwayne Casey's Raptors is a big reason why they have been atop the East for most of the season. Pascal Siakam, the flush, they're down 4 in Cleveland, about 7 to go in the first half. Keep posted on that. As we take a look at this, some of the best records against current playoff teams. Grip, I know you've been all over this list. I'll tell you, first time seeing it at a glance, it sticks out to me that those 2 guards in Portland are pretty good against good teams.
They're not all bad. They're getting things done against the best teams. So one of the things that I think spawned all this was there have been so many 10-game winning streaks, and you really wonder in those streaks, who are people beating? And when Portland went on their 11-game run, they beat 7 playoff teams in there. So they were beating the absolute best of the best, both home and road. The 2 teams we just showed, Toronto and Cleveland, were 3-4 since the All-Star break in Toronto's case and 3-5 in Cleveland's case. Now, Cleveland hasn't had their full roster yet. But if you're Toronto, you're a little bit concerned about that because you had been blowing teams away and outscoring them by 11, 12 a game for a big period of the season. And once the schedule turned a little bit, they weren't faring quite as well against the better teams.
Yeah, and it's safe to say that Cleveland has literally limped into this point, and that they beat Toronto already and then have a chance to beat them again tonight, that's a knife in the heart, you know. And you're thinking about LeBron. He literally dominated them in the playoffs last year, and you're looking around and saying, is this the same beat? Is this the same stuff that we're about to go through again? So this is, I don't want to call it a must-win, but psychologically, you want to say you're for real. Hey, everybody pay attention to us. Why aren't you talking about Toronto? You've got to get these type of wins because they do look forward to the playoffs, and it is a big question. And you're going, man, like, does this guy have our number? Does he own us?
Yeah, there's that litmus test, and I remember, Griff, real quick, last year, Isaiah Thomas, the Celtics late in the season when they played each other, saying something about being the best, and then Cleveland, I think, waxed them by like 30 points. How much does that matter psyche-wise in matchups like this?
Well, LeBron is really good about picking his spots to send a message. The gap between LeBron in the regular season and the gap between LeBron in the regular season and the playoffs is bigger than any elite player in the NBA. He's picking his spots in the regular season because everything for him is about the finals and the playoffs. And so he's very much measuring himself throughout the year. And he'll pick selected games that really matter, that become statement games. And that Boston game you talked about was one of those. Toronto was one last year on the road that was a game he really wanted to have. You're going to know if tonight was a game that he was using as a measuring stick. I still don't think they're healthy enough. They don't have their full complement of players. Their coaching staff has been in some flux. So this will be something where they really don't get too terribly worried about the outcome. From a Toronto standpoint, because I think they've been the first seed for so long, they had so much complacency that had built up. Things had been really easy for a while. I think they were in cruise control, and frankly, they know that they're only going to be judged by what happens in the playoffs. So I don't think they're going to look at this that much. To your point, I don't think they are going to look at it much as a measuring stick because I think they know the only thing that matters now is the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look, especially for, you hate to single out anybody, but for Kyle Lowry, he knows everybody's eyes are going to be on him and how he's played or not played well in the playoffs the last couple of years. I guess I wanted to ask you both because we all talk about, and I just did earlier, the depth. Dwayne has done a fantastic job in making these guys accountable and giving them opportunities. But rotations, they slim down in the playoffs. Is this as big an advantage for Toronto going into the postseason as it's been in the regular season, that they have 4 or 5 guys that they can trust off the bench?
Well, obviously, when you go into a playoff situation, the roster trims down. But the focus for them playing against a Cleveland is who guards LeBron James? Who steps up? You saw Siakam get the big dunk. You know, he's been playing lights out. But can he guard LeBron? Can he pressure him? Can he make moments tough for him? LeBron James is the man in the Eastern Conference and in the NBA because he's a matchup problem. If you got a guy too big, he can't run around with him. And if he's too small, you see LeBron going right to the block. So LeBron James he presents a huge problem. So whoever's in that rotation, you'll see the 6'8", 6'7" guys getting minutes to try to match up with him in the playoffs. And that's really what that lineup or rotation will start to tailor around.
Well, and when OG was healthy at the start of the season, I think they projected that was going to be one of the guys that was guarding him. I think you'll still see a lot of OG there. Siakam has been really, really good defensively.
Yes.
I think they're in a weird situation, though, because they've been throughout basically since the All-Star break. They're second in offensive rating, so they're not struggling scoring at all. They're moving bodies and ball really, really well. But they've dropped to 16th in defensive rating, which is not at all what they were doing early on in the year. So once they find that focus and that intensity again on the defensive side, they'll have a better sense of really understanding what it might look like in the playoffs. I would expect Rex Kalamian's going to throw some things at Cleveland tonight to tinker with it a little bit,
yes,
and see what they might be able to do with LeBron.
Now, I know, Griff, you already, we talked about this, going to be a little jealous, but it's Casual Friday coming up on Friday NBATV. It's also fans only. It depends what you're really considering to be important, because I'll be hosting it in jeans, which is fantastic for me, fans only.